Hello, my name is Sophie Minerva. I'm a professor of philosophy at NLA University College in Oslo. This podcast series is about the question of God. Has our civilization outgrown God? The title refers to British atheist Richard Dawkins' 2019 book, Outgrowing God. The title suggests the book's main message, namely, that our modern world has outgrown belief in God. This series is the result of a pedagogical experiment I conducted last year, where 4 of my philosophy students met regularly with me in a coffee shop to discuss topics raised by Dawkins' book. We discussed Dawkins' main claims in Outgrowing God with occasional references to some of his other publications, and the students contributed their thoughts and information they found online. The 4 students, Hiromi, Thomas, Douglas, and Astrid, were recruited from one of my philosophy classes. They came from different backgrounds and had different views about God. They all agreed to come with an open mind and to follow the usual rules for constructive discussion. The carrot for the students was that they'd get a lot of material for their work assignments and would hopefully enjoy the social setting. I'll let my students introduce themselves.
Konnichiwa. I am Hiromi from Japan. I am studying philosophy and music, and I love composing. I am an agnostic about God. I think there is something attractive about believing in God, but I have many questions. I am curious about Dawkins' book, if it can give me some answers.
Hey, I'm Thomas from Sweden. I study philosophy and ancient history, and I consider myself a skeptical new atheist, like Dawkins. I've read several books by Dawkins before, but not this one. Oh, and my hobby is knitting.
Hi. Yeah, I'm Douglas from the United States. I'm a philosophy student, and I'm thinking about getting a PhD. I think religion is the human search for meaning in a meaningless world. I don't think there is a God or any other supernatural reality. I have a naturalistic worldview, but I don't think science necessarily outclasses other disciplines when it comes to knowing reality. I've read some Dawkins, but not this Outgrowing God book. I'm curious to see what he writes and what the other students make of it.
Hey, I'm Astrid from Norway, and I study philosophy and theology. I have previously studied the course in Communication and Worldviews at NLA University College in Kristiansand, and I'm very interested in arguments for and against belief in God. As a Christian, I believe in the God of the Bible. I hope to continue studying after this program and pursue a PhD in theology.
Okay, so you've heard who the 4 students involved in the book club project are: Hiromi, Thomas, Douglas, and Astrid. The topics covered in these book club conversations were vocabulary and definitions, different positions on the question of God, the nature of reality, the nature of knowledge, the differences between blind faith and enlightened faith, how to think critically, the difference between paradoxes and contradictions, whether science and faith are different paths to knowledge, what evolution is, the question of design in nature, and whether science is leading us to or away from belief in God. We're going to start by listening to conversations from our first group meeting, where topic was words and concepts when talking about God. I started with a little introduction for the students, which I will also include. The cafe chosen as our meeting place was near the campus. The first meeting was on a cold day in January. Okay, now the recorder is on. Let me start with a short introduction about what we are about to do here. Discussing anything seems hard these days. We hear about post-truth, fake news, and cancellation. Many people are afraid of expressing their true opinions. What we should all be striving for here, and what is also the ideal for the university, is the search for truth, goodness, and beauty. The philosophical quest is about thinking deeply and clearly, testing claims, and arguing well. Fruitful dialogue begins with agreement, on what is meant by the terms used to express one's opinions. So, definitions are very important. I also want to say something about attitudes. When we disagree about which fundamental beliefs are true, we need to be patient. We must listen to each other's thoughts and challenge them respectfully. Disagreement can be a way of finding truth. In the words of an ancient proverb, as iron sharpens iron, so one person sharpens another. And as the philosopher Charles Taliaferro says, philosophy is best done in groups where there is a genuine spirit of goodwill and camaraderie. So, dare to ask questions and to share your innermost thoughts. Is that okay? Good. By the way, I see that you all have electronic copies and are online. That's great. I want you to be active, to ask questions, share opinions, and bring up information that you find online. Hiromi, you have a question?
Yes, Professor, I would like to know, what is the difference between the terms atheism and new atheism?
Thank you, Hiromi. A very appropriate question given our first topic, namely vocabulary and concepts. Does anyone want to have a go? Yes, Douglas.
Yeah, I can try to make a couple of points. First, atheism is classically the belief that there is no God of any kind. Philosopher Michael Roos says the term atheist is used for those who deny all gods. The so-called new atheists, or neo-atheists, such as Dawkins, usually combine atheism with three other beliefs. First, that reality is limited to what can be described by natural science. This view is called naturalism, or physicalism. Second, that knowledge can only come from science. This view is called scientism. And third, that religious belief is not only an intellectual dead end, but immoral and bad for society. So what is my position? Well, as a classical atheist, I personally agree with the first of those three additional points, but not the second or third. So I do not support scientism or think that all religion is evil.
I see. Thank you, Douglas.
Wait a minute. Isn't an atheist just someone who doesn't believe in any deity, as Dawkins says?
No. There's a nuanced distinction here. If you define atheism simply as not believing, then it becomes impossible to distinguish atheism from agnosticism. Agnostics also lack belief in God, but they don't have an opinion one way or the other as to whether or not God exists. Atheists have an opinion. They positively believe that there is no God. So that is actually a belief.
I found something here. I will read it. It's by philosopher C. Stephen Evans, who says the agnostic neither affirms belief in God, theism, nor denies God's existence, atheism, but instead defers deciding the question.
Exactly.
And Evans also distinguishes between the moderate agnostic, who only claims that he is unable to settle the question of God's existence, and the aggressive agnostic, who claims that no one can know what is true about this, and that the only sensible thing to do is to leave the question alone.
Okay, right. This is actually helpful. So an agnostic says, either I don't know or nobody can know, to the question of whether God exists, right? Dawkins says that although we can't know for sure, most of us are confident enough to say that we are atheists concerning polytheism's many gods. So by atheism, he means he has a positive belief that there are no gods. He doesn't claim to know for sure, but he is still expressing what he believes. He is a believer in God's non-existence.
Yes, and that also means that even Dawkins has to defend his own belief, just as the theist has to defend theirs.
I see that now. Interesting.
I am a moderate agnostic. I have no opinion, and so I don't need to defend anything.
Better to be a moderate agnostic than an apathetic agnostic, I guess.
Apathetic? What does that mean?
I don't have a clue, and I don't care to know.
Yes, to be apathetic means to not care. A lot of people seem to be quite apathetic when it comes to thinking about God, but you said you wanted to see if Dawkins' book could give you any answers. So that means you're not apathetic.
You are right, Astrid. I am not apathetic. I think the existence or non-existence of God has a big impact on what kind of world we live in. Many questions about life are hard to answer if there is no God. For myself, I would like to make some progress here to get a clearer sense of my life. I've been reading the agnostic philosopher Mortimer J. Adler, who wrote that affirming or denying God has greater consequences for thought and action than any other fundamental question. He also said philosophers should never neglect the duty of forming their own opinions. It is not enough simply to refer to the views of others or to resort to shallow claims.
Yes, I agree with that. By the way, did you know Adler became a Christian later in life?
Really? That's interesting.
I have also formed my own opinion, and I agree with Dawkins. He says that atheists just don't believe in anything supernatural. Same with me.
But do you think he means that even though he doesn't believe in souls or angels, they could be real for all he knows? Or do you think he means that souls and angels don't exist?
I think he means that God's souls and angels do not exist.
I think you are right, Thomas. Dawkins doesn't just lack a belief in supernatural things like souls or angels. He actively believes that nothing supernatural exists because he actively believes only natural things exist.
Wait, I found something here. Atheist philosopher Julian Baggini states, quote, "The atheist's rejection of belief in God is usually accompanied by a broader rejection of any supernatural or superior reality. For example, an atheist does not usually believe in the existence of immortal souls, an afterlife, spirits, or supernatural forces. Although strictly speaking, an atheist can believe in all of these things and still call himself an atheist." Unquote.
Right, I agree with Baggini. My rejection of anything supernatural comes from my naturalistic worldview, which says reality consists only of the natural physical world.
Thank you, all of you. We'll come back to naturalism next time, but we have to wrap up now. I think this was very good. I think I've got the right students for these conversations. I will finish the recording here, but you're, of course, welcome to stay and talk more if you like. Okay, see you next time. I have to go for now.
Okay, see you later.
Yeah.
See you.
You have been listening to The Question of God. Has Our Civilization Outgrown God? A 12-episode podcast series from Biocosmos Norway and Damaris Norway. You can find references and resources online. The script by Birger Elliott Benson and Peter S. Williams was adapted from parts of the book Outgrowing God, A Beginner's Guide to Richard Dawkins and the God Debate by Peter S. Williams, who also composed the music. All voices, including mine, were performed using AI. The sound editor was Birger Elliott Benson.